Here's the outline for our webinar. As you can see, we will be introducing ourselves and what Mason Conservation District has to offer. We will cover farming, forestry, and freshwater shorelines. We will also leave time for discussion and breakout rooms with each of the presenters. We want to start by quickly talking about Mason Conservation District. The district is a great resource for Mason County landowners and residents that are looking to effectively manage their land and contribute to conservation efforts. As a non-regulatory agency, Mason CD provides free site visits solely at the request of the property owner. District staff will talk with landowners about their goals and provide technical assistance, and in some cases, financial assistance to achieve that outcome. We provide confidential counsel to landowners without the risk of regulation. We also host a variety of educational programs and workshops at schools and in the community, like this webinar we're having today. At this time, I would like to introduce myself and the other staff on this call. My name is Jen Thurman Williams. I'm an environmental specialist and I get to work with students in the school. I work in the annual plant sale and other outreach events. We have Steve Haggerty. He's the Shore Friendly and Lead Entity Coordinator. Nick Schneider is the Agricultural Resource Technician and Farm Planner. Margaret Creeder is the Stewardship Forester. Mark Mead, also a Stewardship Forester. Keith Underwood, the Senior Conservation Manager. Barbara Adkins, Special Programs Manager, and Logan Callum, the AmeriCorps Environmental Education Coordinator. So welcome all. We're happy you're here. This is a common theme for the night, but it is so important to help you know how we can help you. We are a non-regulatory special purpose district. Our mission is to promote the sustainable use, conservation, and restoration of natural resources for future generations. We do not enforce compliance or impose penalties, but are here to offer recommendations and advice. A bit about our history. As a result from the 1930s Dust Bowl, the need to conserve natural resources was made clear. The Soil Conservation Service, now the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and how we say it as NRCS, was created under the Soil Conservation Act of 1935 to develop and implement soil erosion control programs. Local leadership was needed to coordinate efforts and focus on local conditions and priorities. U.S. Congress developed a model conservation law for adoption by the states. In 1939, Washington State established conservation districts in Washington. Every one of Washington's 39 counties is represented by at least one district. And in 1956, Mason Conservation District was established. Washington now has 45 conservation districts. We want to help meet your goals with your lands. Our staff have technical expertise in forestry, farming, and freshwater shoreline conservation planning. We provide confidential counsel to landowners without risk of repercussions. We're a clearinghouse of information collected through a broad network of agencies, organizations, vendors, and partners. We are here to help assess your needs, make recommendations, and as feasible, support funding and implementation of solutions. We have an engineering team to help with agricultural structures, bridges and culverts, erosion protection, stormwater management, and low impact design. We also are here to provide financial assistance when it is available. Each of the speakers will speak a little bit about opportunities that can come up. We can also provide detailed technical information. So geologic or soils maps, native planting lists, reports, and recommendations. So our first speaker is going to be Steve, and I will turn it over to him, and he is going to talk about the Chehalis Basin.
Hi, welcome everyone. Just like at this time to provide a little bit of context for what we'll be talking about today. I know those of you who live in this area know this place quite well, and as you probably know, we all live in a watershed, and the folks that we've kind of invited to this webinar today, are targeting our outreach, live in the southwestern portion of the county here, as part of the second biggest watershed in Washington, the Chehalis Basin, which comprises about 2,600 square miles, coming down from the hills of Lewis County through Centralia and out to Grays Harbor and draining out to the Pacific. It has a broad network of streams, about 3,300 miles of streams. And a little bit of geologic history for fun. So about 18,000 years ago, the northern Puget Sound area and the area to the north of it is covered with large glaciers. And over time, up to about 13,000 years ago, those glaciers began to recede and melt. And through that action, a large glacial lake was created, Glacial Lake Russell. And through that geologic history and interactions, the lake drained over time through the Black Lake spillway out to the Chehalis River, out to Grays Harbor, out to the Pacific. And through that action, that created a lot of movement and carving of the very broad and wide valley of the Chehalis today. It gives its character that we see to this day. Some other kind of contextual factors here is the landscape prior to industrialization and colonization of this area was much more of a landscape of a giant sponge full of rich forest, old growth forest, a lot of stream channels that had wetlands and meandering streams and side channels, and a lot of wood in those streams and along the banks of those streams, and very rich in fish habitat as well. And the landscape that we have today now is a bit more of a mosaic and looks a little bit different, of course. The landscape has much less sponge potential, much less capacity to convey our floodwaters. There's been a lot of development in the transportation infrastructure along our rivers and levees and so on, as well as the settlements and towns and cities that align our basin. There's been a lot of stream channelization, so straightening of our stream channels, and a loss of wetlands and simplification of the stream channels, loss of side channels, that sort of thing, and removal of wood in and out of the streams, including on the stream banks and the riparian or the vegetation along the riverside. And as a result, has been much poorer in fish habitat. We've, as I mentioned, lost capacity to convey some of our floodwaters to the same degree. And those are some challenges we're facing. There's been a lot of opportunities that have come with the way we have changed our management of the land, such as some of our agricultural products and our forest products that we enjoy, and the settlements in which we live. But those are just some of the realities, of course, that we are living with as the landscape has changed over time. And in part due to the history of the glaciation, that's created sort of a disproportionately broad and wide valley here in the Chehalis. We see and we know that flooding has kind of always been the character of this landscape, and the land use patterns that we've created have kind of aggravated those a bit. And we also are seeing weather and climate patterns changing and having more precipitation falling in a narrower window of time, but also more aggressively. So we're getting wetter winters and drier summers, and that's leading to some changes we're seeing on the landscape in terms of our in terms of our weather and flooding patterns. And so the basin that we all love and enjoy today is occupied by a rich, diverse mix of farms and forests and towns and floodplains and fish and wildlife, and it's cared for all of you, including our foresters, our farmers, the many residents that live here, as well as our government and tribal partners. And it's important in rare fish and aquatic wildlife habitat in our many wetlands and streams and rivers, as well as our forests. And in that, our salmon stocks are actually doing somewhat better as compared to other parts of the state, but they're still somewhat in decline. And so as a result, next slide, please. And to manage the flooding challenges that we've talked about, the 2016, the state created an Office of the Chehalis Basin to kind of pursue a big strategy to tackle these two issues kind of head on, because no one really wants to see any listed fish and any enhanced regulations. And folks, we also want to try to work together to resolve some of our flooding challenges as well. And on the board of the Chehalis Basin, you'll see kind of a group of partners shown by their icons to the right there. So there, in this strategy, in these big plans and strategies, there's a lot of different ideas, and I won't get into them too much today, but the kind of the big overarching pictures there's a lot of big ideas, like creating a large flood retention facility or dam, doing some major levee enhancements and certain transportation protection, and changing land use management at small to large scales. However, there's also a lot of local ideas and opportunities for us to work together to solve some of these challenges that are affecting people at a regional scale. And that includes working on individual parcels to restore streams, streambanks, and wetlands, reconnecting floodplains, providing land for habitat, as well as flood storage, helping removing fish barriers, and that sort of thing. In Mason County, the area that more specifically I'm talking about, as part of the Chehalis Basin, is the outline of the area shown in reddish orange here, that polygon. And there's a number of streams for which you all probably live near, including the East Fork Satsup River, part of the Middle Fork Satsup coming down from the Olympics, Cloclawum Creek, as well as the many tributaries of these systems, including Decker and Dry Run and Bingham. Some features that you may or may not know that make this part of the county somewhat unique and different from some of the other parts of the county that we serve, and include the sort of, the mosaic of land use that we have here, and the, dominated by forest land, and a lot of that being owned by commercial timberland. That's true in other parts of the county as well, but forest production has somewhat less potential than in other parts of the county. And our forester will talk a little bit more about some of the challenge and opportunities around forestry. There's kind of looser connection to shellfish issues as compared to a lot of the rest of the county that is more closely connected in terms of geography to large bodies of water. And so the estuary in Grays Harbor is quite a bit from these upland systems here, but water quality is still something that I think we all care about. As I mentioned, kind of the fish runs here are doing better in some ways than some other parts of the county, and but this area is unique. While we all probably see some level of flooding here, it is a little bit higher in the system. It's a little bit higher gradient and narrow floodplain than a little bit downstream in the system. And so it means there's a little less opportunity for bigger projects to reorient stream channels or have big levees or that sort of thing. But there's still a lot of opportunities for us to work together at the local scale. And so, yeah, some of the things that types of projects that we're looking to think and talk about that we'll revisit later in the stream section include some programs around riparian planting, which can help protect your bank from further erosion, but also absorb some floodwaters, help provide habitat for fish. Large wood projects that can, again, help protect your bank, redirect flows away from your bank and provide refuge for fish. And then other sorts of programs like floodplain acquisition programs that would be voluntary programs that you could sign up for to help pay you to protect your flood-prone land, to help reserve that land for conveying floodwaters. So, I guess this all comes back to the idea that we can all be part of the solution here. We can help work together to solve some big problems, around flooding and water storage and habitat at the basin scale, but we also can simultaneously work together to figure out what our individual goals are on our lands. And we just want to be a resource for you to lean on to help support your goals. And so we'll discuss together today a little bit more about that, about the different voluntary options we could consider working on that range from working in our stream systems to working more upland in our farms and our forests to try to meet goals that are going to protect your resources and help us all be good stewards of the broader community. So with that, thank you for your time. I'll pass it over to Nick Schneider.
All right, guys. We can kind of mosey on down here. Brief introduction of who I am. I'm the agricultural resource technician for the district here. I like to say I wear a couple different hats, with farm planning being one of them, but a major part of what I do is just technical assistance. I'm here as a resource to the community. There's a picture of me there, so you get to know me, since you'll be inviting me onto your land for, a site visit. I come from the agricultural community. I'm consider myself a farmer, producer, experienced with livestock of all types and orchard management. So, I've kind of had my hands in anything before I took a pivot, and gladly joined on with MCD here. So let's kind of jump right in to what we got. We're gonna start off with the equipment we have available for the community here. Poultry processing equipment, as you can see here, plucker, sculler, kill cones. We have 2 sets available. So for small producers, large producers trying to mitigate costs, do that on their own property, we have these available for you. $35 a day or 70 bucks for the weekend. It's a very popular program, and it's not limited to our county here. So schedule in advance, make sure your window is open, your processing dates are set, and we'll coordinate and pick up and drop off. We just asked you bring it back in clean condition, so we're not spending time doing that. And on the far right here, we have weed pullers, free for you to borrow. We want that Scotch broom out of there. So anything to help our restoration crew in the field to get down to work and help us get back to our more, native species and the original state here. So let's go on to our overview kind of here of the ag and farm services we offer. It's open to everybody. If you have 1 acre, a horse, a donkey, a cow, you've got 100 head dairy, give us a call. There's services that are applicable to you. Grazing plans, pasture management, these are all things we cover. If you have a small garden in your backyard and you have questions about soil tests, or you've got 50 acres of row crops, give us a call. Let's see what we can do. Questions, comments, we're here for it. Animal husbandry resources. If you come to us and we don't have the answers, the information you will be getting from us has been vetted, fact-checked. We like to pull all of our information from these partner agencies you hear about, NRCS, USDA, WSU, Washington State, and their small farm teams, there's an extensive library and we can help you navigate it. Right there at the bottom, we help landowners identify their resource concerns and we find practices to help mitigate those risks. And a large part of what I do is the technical assistance. We provide you with valid assistance when trouble arises, or we locate regional experts to best assist you. We're not always the best people for the job, but we can point you in the right direction. So if you look at this little infographic here, quick overview of the BMPs we're gonna briefly cover. We talk about, these BMPs, which stand for best management practices. Think of it as a Swiss Army knife when we are looking to deal with conservation. Many tools in there for us to try to find the best way to mitigate your risk. So let's go to our first one of the riparian forest buffer. Essentially, we want a space between that stream or creek and any kind of agricultural production. Why do we want it? Number one big reason, we want to control the spray and broadcast drift. Even though it doesn't seem there may be wind in the air, whether you're spreading ag lime, especially in the powdered form, pesticide, herbicides, this isn't going to be a problem for the smaller producers as much as the larger producers, but it's a resource issue. We talk about shade for trees to help keep the water cool. Our salmon species, the cooler the water is, the higher the levels of dissolved oxygen. So it helps our salmon, it helps our smaller microorganisms, just an overall healthy ecosystem. It's a source of large woody debris, the roots from the trees or herbaceous and, woody vegetation. It helps hold that soil in place. We're mitigating that erosion. We're helping control that flood water. We're trying to contain it as much as possible without it letting just disperse over a flat field. We saw those earlier images of the Dust Bowl, sheet and rill erosion and, the gully formation. These are very important resources, and there's only so much topsoil available to you that was built up over time before that resource is gone. So let's just kind of keep moseying down, and let's talk about this BMP watering facilities. A lot of producers are allowing their animals access to these streams and creeks. That causes bank erosion, minus the nutrient being deposited, from manure. So we help you provide facilities, keep those animals out of the water. And it's a cost share project, so there's potential there. We'll just jump right into heavy use area. Basically it's your barnyard. You can see here, disease, pests, it's a breeding ground. If anybody's had to deal with the hoof rot on their property, this is a case of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. On our right here, you can see construction being done with a base of geotextile fabric layered with hard-packed gravel. Makes it easier to clean, reduces your mud, your manure buildup, just improves your animal's health. And so when we go into our next BMP here with manure storage, where are we putting, we're cleaning out our barnyard, we're cleaning out our barn, our stalls. We want that manure covered. Every time it rains, you're losing those nutrients, and it's either going into the stream, into the river, out into the ocean. And there is a dollar amount attached to those nutrients. If you have pastures, you should be spreading that manure at the appropriate time, keeping it on your farm, making it work for you so you're not losing those dollars. And all of this helps protect our salmon, our shellfish industries. It's going to make your life easier at the end of the day, managing your manure, your mud, your animal's health. And what do we pair this with? Our next BMP, our roof runoff structures and subsurface drains. Simply put, gutters and downspouts. We pair our gutters and downspouts with our subsurface drains because we don't want them just kicking out right into that nice heavy use area we built. We want to mitigate that flooding, that ponding, and we want it to go to an appropriate outlet. You know, it could be a rain garden. It could be a barrel for you to capture and contain that water for you to use to water your animals, mitigate your fire risk, you know, have that available in case that happens. This is a cost share project, so there are possible funds available. And it's one of those things where if the landowner does the work, that labor is documented and reimbursed to you. So we would give you a timesheet, you would document it, complete it to, you know, our satisfaction, and that's all included. So how are we keeping these animals in the barnyard? Exclusion fence. You know, we're not coming on your property to build you a perimeter fence. Now, if part of the exclusion fence is on the perimeter, that's an added bonus for you, but we want to keep those animals out of the stream. We want to keep them contained in the heavy use area when your pastures are oversaturated. We work with a lot of horse people. You know, if your horse, you know, is rambunctious as they get, like what are they? Those Arabians get quite sparky, I have heard. And so they can be damaging to your pasture, and that's more work you have to go put in. So, you know, you see here, horse high, pig tight, bull strong. That's kind of the standard. It's got to be built to specifications, which we provide to you, because we want that fence to last 20 years. So, you know, all of these are made available to us, and it all comes together in our farm plans. So let's look at a brief overview here. So this is a nice picture of my tractor. I'm just going to comment on that. Once upon a time, she actually is at a vineyard on the coast of Lake Erie right now, helping with hay rides. So I think went to a good home. But your farm plan, it's a working and it's a changing document. It's meant to be for you, the landowner. It's supposed to outline your goals, your objectives. And we talked about an ounce of prevention. It's there to help you mitigate your costly mistakes. You know, without that prior planning, you're running the risk for setting yourself up for just something worse down the line. So, you know, have us out, have us help you establish your grazing plan. It helps you lower your feed bill, improve your pastures, help you make you know, informed decision. So when we come out, we would help start by inventorying your resources. Before we even come out, we start doing a little bit of pre-planning here. We're looking at your soil types, you know, what areas you would have as resource concerns, so that when we do come on the farm, you know, we're coming as experts. We already know these areas we want to make sure we can look at. And then it's confidential and we're non-regulatory. So if some of your practices, you might be a little worried, well, I'm maybe embarrassed, I don't know if they're up to snuff. That's not something where, you know, we're here to help you improve. We're a service for the community. And so a lot of our conservation practices, you know, they're there to help you improve the natural habitat in your own backyard. When you're looking out the window, you know, what do we want to see? We want to see eagles and salmon, that picturesque, you know, farm life. And we're here to help you kind of bring that into the, you know, the forefront of what you want to do. So, you know, give us a call, have us out, we can talk, we can see how we can help you. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack and it's kind of a brief overview. So, you know, bear with it, you know, thanks.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Margaret Creeder. I'm one of the foresters at Mason Conservation District, and that's me out there in a bright neon, looking at some forest property. All right. So forest management is all about working with dynamic forest systems to increase benefits for people and the environment. You can achieve a lot of different goals based on what management actions you choose. So we want to work with the management activities that best complement natural processes, which will just overall make your life a little bit easier. The There are some main benefits to forests, which you probably already know. So, but we'll go through a couple of them. So the first one is economic benefits. Obviously, you see log trucks going down the road. Forests produce a significant amount of wood products and timber that we are used all over the world. They're also used for money for rentals, such as hunting or fishing. You can have leases that allow people to come in and use your property. There's water quality. Forests are a major part of capturing and controlling water flow. Forest systems basically act as a giant filter. Water flowing through forests is kept cooler and protected from evaporation. Forested watersheds provide high quality water as they filter through the various layers of canopy and understory. So the water exiting these forest systems is cleaner and requires less treatment to make it safe to drink. Paired closely with water quality is soil health and erosion protection. Those root systems are really holding all that soil in place and helping that to be maintained over time. Our next one is habitat and ecosystems. Forests are habitats for a multitude of plants and animals. Healthy ecosystems with higher amounts of these different species of plants and animals are better adapted to withstand a variety of disasters, including flooding and wildfire, and some of the upcoming issues we're seeing with climate change. The higher the species count in forests, the more likely they are to adapt to these upcoming changes. The last one here is recreation and human health. Forests are simply a really beautiful place to be. I know I love being out in them. And, they attract a lot of people here that bring some economic benefit as well. Forests are a significant portion of the recreation land in this area. Forests also provide oxygen and purify the air we breathe. So these benefits you're looking for on your property are going to affect your goals and therefore your forest management strategies. So we're looking at, in the Chehalis Basin, we want to know if your property has these kinds of issues. Near or adjacent to streams or wetlands, too few trees, too many trees, steep, unstable slopes, poor soil health, you got a lot of weeds, if you have dead or dying trees. These are some of the things that we're looking to identify on properties and help out with. You don't have to just have these things on your property. We can help with other goals that you want to achieve, other things that you want to solve. But these are a few examples of what we're looking for. So we can help with these. Oh, here's a quick picture. You can go ahead on that slide. We have a quick picture here of that Chehalis area. On the left, there is what's called our site productivity map. So it kind of just shows where trees grow the best on the soil types available. You can see a lot of the area is that dark green, which is a site class 3. This is about an average productivity to low productivity. And then on the right, we have all of those yellow pieces are the non-industrial landowner parcels. You can see a lot of those are located along these stream banks and in some of that spotty site productivity. So there are some issues that may arise with growing forest on the properties, and we can help come up with strategies that will work with you on that. All right, so how we can help. We can evaluate the current forest conditions on your property. In general, we're looking for about an acre or more of contiguous trees that would make up a forest stand. the size of that forest is going to kind of determine what you can really do on the property. So we can kind of work with you on those options. We can share our knowledge of tree health and forest systems. We can translate what you want to do with your property into actions that you can take to get you there. We can create forest plans that will highlight these goals and provide a living document to work on those management practices for the next 10 to 20 years. And we can connect you with other opportunities and cost saving measures, including current use taxation programs that will help reduce taxes if you're moving from residential or undeveloped tax designations. Those also help protect working lands into the future, as well as cost share and financial assistance, which we'll look at next. So financial assistance we're a non-regulatory interface to get to these programs. A lot of the financial assistance we work with comes from state and federal agencies, such as Natural Resource Conservation Service and the Department of Natural Resources. So first we have the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS. Their two major programs are what we call EQIP and CSP. So there's a couple examples there of practices that you can do through those programs. A lot of this cost share requires an upfront investment from the landowner and then works to repay the landowner for that work. And a lot of people are involved in that process to make sure that we're keeping the land healthy and working on those practices together in a cooperative manner. The next one is Department of Natural Resources. One of the big ones is the Family Forest Fish Passage Program. It's quite a mouthful, but basically that's where if you have culverts or bridges on your property that are in need of repair, we can help you get signed up with that program, which will work with you to repair those to help keep your forest production. And there's also the option for easements, such as the forest riparian easement, which pays for property area that you retain as a riparian buffers. And also, so new cost share and easement opportunities arise nearly every year. So we try and keep up to date with all of those and can alert you of ones that are appropriate for your property and your goals, which you're wanting to look for in the future. And here is a visual example. So this is a pre-commercial thinning, and it's removing all of the non-commercially viable stems in your forest stand and creating a more open area. This is to improve the growth of your trees, as well as helping to reestablish an understory, which is great for wildlife. And the next one, we have two here on the left there. That's an example of a wildlife habitat pile. And this obviously provides a little place for the critters to kind of dive into and create nests, and they just love those. And then on the right, we have an example of a volunteer crew planting some native trees and shrubs. If you want to do this in your forest stand, it can provide a lot of benefits, like we talked about before, for stand resiliency, and as well as providing food sources for wildlife if you're wanting them on your property, and creating that extra layer that will help improve your water quality as well as your soils. Okay. If you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat and we can address them as they come up at the end.
Thanks, Margaret. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our shoreline program and our habitat program. So we're going to talk a bit about freshwater streams and stream banks. So one thing to note here is, although we're excited to work with anyone in the Chehalis Basin, including the Coquitlam Creek Watershed, for our stream program, we do have a little bit more resources available to be specifically targeting some specific watersheds here that you can see in green. So if you live in these areas, then there's a bit of a higher chance we can connect you with some funding, but we're happy to come out for a site visit regardless. So we know that streams are pretty dynamic systems, and we all enjoy living near the water, but that creates a lot of challenges and opportunities for enjoyment and recreation, but a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of change and uncertainty as river systems meander around and change over time and cause erosion problems, and sometimes respond unpredictably with weather events and so on. And those things may or may not be impacting your structures, or risk to your structures, or your desired uses or land productivity. And we want to try to work together with you to address either existing challenges with that or potential future challenges and sort of head those off. So just like the farm and forestry program, we can come out for a site visit. In certain cases, we might come out together if we have a property that has multiple uses. And so we're really excited to, a lot of our programs intersect at different points. So we're excited to work together with you on different concerns that you might have. So in any case, as has been expressed previously on site visits, we can come out and identify, inventory, evaluate current site conditions, help connect you with technical information regarding some of your questions and concerns about managing your streams and stream banks. We can connect you with outside experts or programs when we don't know the answers, or we want to connect you with some supplemental resources, and we can help you choose credible information and from the plethora of information that's out there. And in terms of, can we go back one slide, please? Just in terms of some of the voluntary practices we can support, we can help achieve some of your goals, which may or may not include things like promoting the stability of your bank, redirecting flows away from your property, away from your structures near the bank, soaking up water, slowing down, soaking up water to slow down floodwaters, manage sediment challenges, or provide habitat, reduce pollution, things like that. So there's a lot of needs in the basin at large that we talked about in the beginning with those kind of big regional plans. Some of those actions, like just a refresher that I identified in that framework, include things like riparian restoration, reconnecting floodplains, putting large wood in the area, in the streams, doing local projects for floodwater storage and mitigation. And so those are going to have some similar benefits there, but we also want to work with you to meet your goals within that context, and not just implement some top-down plan. And so some of the examples of some of the voluntary practices that others have alluded to in part include planting riparian buffers, and there's a few different programs we can use to work with that, managing invasive species and managing vegetation that's growing on your riverbanks, installing large wood either kind of ingrained in the riverbank or in some cases in the stream to help, that can help redirect flows away from your structure or towards certain desired outcomes, and additionally provide important habitat and stream function and restore natural stream processes. We can also support fish passage barrier corrections, which may or may not be giving you upstream or downstream disruptions in stream flow and that sort of thing. We can help create side channels, which can in some cases alleviate some drainage challenges while providing habitat, or work on floodplain reconnection projects. And then we can also support or connect you with voluntary, of course, easement or acquisition projects that may be able to compensate you for for lands that are fallow or heavily inundated and challenging to make productive. And so, like others have said, we want to help secure funding. And we're a little more in this program. We're a little less cost share oriented, a little more focused on grant programs. And so, a lot of the projects we're looking for under this program are projects that have a strong habitat component, are going to benefit our fish. But we also, again, want to meet your goals where you're at. There's a lot of opportunity to find projects that can support the challenges you're having with your stream bank and your property while also providing habitat. So we want to be creative about how we're approaching projects and use funding to support multiple benefits here and definitely try to meet your goals through voluntary projects. And we can support you by that technical assistance and that financial component. And so another way to do that is we can provide rental payments for riparian buffers through the CREP program. That's just a program that allows you to, we can sort of pay you essentially for plantings near your riverbank and essentially for giving up that land for production, while also helping protect your riverbank from erosion and providing a number of the benefits that Nick alluded to earlier. And then, as I mentioned, voluntary easements and acquisitions can be funded through a variety of funding sources, as well as Fish Passage has its own set of funding attached to that. So we're excited to explore different potential options with you that address different concerns. And again, we want to work together, meet your goals. We don't want to tell you what to do, but we're on the lookout for landowners that we're excited to collaborate with and we can work together on. And again, we're non-regulatory, non-enforcement government entity. So everything we're doing is voluntary and with your invitation. And we want to help work with you. And we can sometimes help support connecting you with local and state federal government. We can also work with you to implement these practices from the ground up, from identifying challenges, working with you to meet your needs, developing plans to address them, and also then getting the funding. And then in some cases, our crew can even support the construction of some of these practices as well. So we see it as full circle, and we want to help support investments in our local community. We all know that you are all the experts of your own lands, and we just want to help support you and work together and provide the resources that we have at our disposal to support our community. So that's what we're here for, and we're really excited that you all came out today. So we're really grateful and appreciate you all being here and taking the time to listen.
You are all welcome to go to our website and reach out to us that way. Here is the contact information for Nick, Margaret, and also for the freshwater and shorelines. You're welcome to send an email there as well. We can set up appointments with you. And like I said, you can just also go to our website, www.masoncd.org, and all of our contact information will be there. But we really do appreciate your time and for joining us, this evening. We also want to thank all of our community partners, the ag and forestry community, local, state, and federal agencies, nonprofits, tribes. Of course, we like to thank the funders that help us provide these services, and Washington State Conservation Commission. We have still time available if anyone has questions. We can address them now. We also, if you're interested in speaking directly with the forester or the farm planner or Steve, our freshwater person, we can do that as well in a breakout session. So let's see. Logan, do we have any questions that we needed to address?
We have one comment from Miguel that he has several hundred feet of embankment on Goldsboro Creek along his property and would love to talk about inviting out a site visit for that.
That's great. We have your contact information, Miguel, and we'll certainly reach out to you, and we can, if you'd like, we can set up, we can just shift you out and have you talk to Steve if you want to now, or we can just set up an appointment, whatever is best for you. So.
Yeah. And then we also had a question from Barbara asking about what really does cost share mean, and can we learn more about that?
Yeah, cost share is so interesting. We say it and we all talk about it, but it isn't as clear as what we say. So generally, with most of the grants, the landowner has to pay for the practice that we are prescribing. So they pay for the practice up front. These practices have already all been, at this point, they would have been discussed. We would have a budget. We would give clear direction as to what you would need to do to get reimbursed. So once you're done with the practice, then all of your receipts and timesheets are turned in. And then generally on most of our grants, it's a 75-25% cost share. So you would be reimbursed 75% of the cost of that practice. And like I said, each of those practices will be a determined budget. And so you would only get reimbursed up to the maximum amount. And that is obviously that the practice would have to be built to the standard that we would provide you. And so that's kind of what we mean by cost share. It does sometimes take a bit of time to go through the process. And so that is, sometimes difficult, but we are trying to find, different options and the best way to get these practices on the ground. All right. Well, you all, thank you so much.
Jen, you have another question
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
from Barbara.
Okay.
You mentioned CREP, or this may be, I think maybe for Margaret. I can't remember. But what is more description on CREP?
All right, it's Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. But Nick or Margaret, if you guys want to jump in, you're welcome to it as well. So it is based, so what it is, it's a practice generally along streams or riparian areas. And what you're doing is it is a acreage payment, and that land would be still, you still own the land. You are just getting a rental payment to take it out of its current use, which could or mostly is farming. So that land then would generally include having fencing along it to keep any kind of animals or farm animals out. And then it would be planted with native plants to increase that area along the stream, to include, trees and shrubs that will help provide shade and shelter for wildlife.
Yeah, there is a minimum acreage associated with CREP. So that is something to be aware of. And then when we talk about buffers adjacent to the stream, there are minimum requirements. I believe the CREP minimum requirement is 35 feet on either side. And then there's also a maximum on your buffer. And it's an interagency program. So it involves the FSA, the Farm Service Agency, NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So depending on whether they're coming out of Grace Harbor or up in Kitsap, so those are where the agencies are located. And I believe the FSA regional office for Mason County is either in Chehalis or Centralia, one of those two. So it's not there is a process involved in documenting that and to move forward based on working with those different agencies. So it's something that takes a bit of planning to implement, but it's highly encouraged and one of those things we're actively pursuing. We love them.
There is a similar type of program it's called FREP, so Forest Riparian Easement, which I believe I had on my slide, and works in a similar way, and that is you get payments for retaining your forest areas that are adjacent to riparian streams and wetlands, and it is usually valued based on the timber that you're leaving, so what you'd be able to sell that timber for, and so that would be run more through the Department of Natural Resources instead of the NRCS.
Right, was that all the questions, Logan?
No.
Oh. All right. Well, again, thank you all so much. If you would like to stay on, you're welcome to do so, and I can hook you up with any one of our team members here if you have direct questions. Thank you.